The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Wrestling with Johners. And it's no ordinary episode of Wrestling with Johners this week. Oh no, it's episode 300 of Wrestling with Johners. And this journey started about 4.5 years ago. Remarkably, it started as a review show for what was the brand new NXT UK show. So episode 1 of that correlated with episode 1 of Wrestling with Johners. 4.5 years later, 300 episodes later, and we are live once again across Facebook Live, YouTube and Twitch. And I couldn't think of a better guest to have to celebrate my 300th episode than with the host of the Nina Samuels show, the current Riot Cabaret Women's World Champion, Nina Samuels. Nina, great to have you on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. Congratulations on 300 episodes.
Yes, it's been a hell of a journey, but a great journey. I've enjoyed every single moment of it. And this is actually my 5th live interview in the month of May, and probably my last one. I've given myself a couple of weeks off because, of course, got a busy back end of the month with various shows, including Super Strong Style for Progress, and we'll talk all about that in a minute. But Nina, fantastic to have you on the show. And first of all, a quick shout out to Elliot Marriott, Elliot93, for the fantastic graphic. And always delivers whenever I asked him to do the special graphics for these milestone episodes, and he's really knocked it out of the park there for episode 300 and Nina Samuels. But Nina, the first thing I want to ask you about is you came back onto the UK Indies, I think it was maybe last September, so not too long ago. And, since then, you've been so busy all over the UK Indies, across Europe, I think Finland, Denmark, Japan. Now we're kind of getting to all of that, but since coming back onto the UK Indies, if you could sum up kind of your journey so far, I bet it feels like it's gone in a blink of an eye in some sort of whirlwind, but how would you explain your journey since coming back onto the Indies?
It has been a whirlwind. Like, it's been great being busy. Like, it kind of feels like it's flown by, but then at the same time, if I think back to when I first came back to the Indies, it actually feels like so long ago. But yeah, up until the recent injury, I hadn't really stopped. So yeah, it's been great. So getting out there, like wrestling all these girls, some that I'd wrestled years ago, some that I hadn't wrestled before. Traveling, I could say, like getting to live out a dream, going to Japan. Like it's been such a fun, however many months that it's been. I've had an amazing time.
Oh, absolutely. And say you're one of your, well, let's start with, we had a little bit of a conversation before we went live, Nina, and you mentioned that you are coming back this coming weekend following your injury, and that today you took your first bump. How was that? Because I think you've been kind of on the sidelines for a few weeks now.
So it's been six and a half weeks
Wow.
now in total. So yeah, it's felt like the longest time ever. So yeah, I think first of April was my last match where I got hurt. So it's felt like so long. And yeah, taking my first bump today was, I'm not going to say I loved it. I'm not gonna lie. I loved the fact that I could do it and not be wrecked afterwards. But yeah, I definitely didn't miss it. Bumps aren't fun. But yeah, I'm so happy that I'm finally feeling like I'm on the way back to being a proper human again, a proper wrestler again.
Yeah.
For a long time, I didn't even feel like a human. Like the most basic tasks would wipe me out. So it was really scary. But yeah, so a big relief, feeling like I'm finally, getting back on the way to recovery. And yeah, like I say, this Saturday, my return match back at PW. So I'm nervous, but very excited.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a tournament as well. So a one night tournament. So hopefully coming back with a bang, not just with one matches, but 3 matches, getting all the way to the final and winning the whole thing. That's coming back with a bang. That is the goal.
Absolutely. And it's the Nancy Benoit Memorial Women's Tournament, isn't it? So in honor of Woman, one of the best wrestling managers of all time, somebody that I grew up watching in WCW and ECW with the likes of the Sandman and various others. But have you kind of got any memories of Nancy Benoit, of Woman, Nancy Sullivan as she was known? Because she's a very iconic figure, but sometimes a bit of a forgotten figure as well.
So I wasn't watching at the time when she was on. So most of what I've seen of her is sort of, you know, from documentaries looking back at her and what she did. But yeah, an amazing woman. And yeah, it's great that we get to be able to honor her with this tournament. And as I say, I'm going to try and honor her the best way that I can by winning the whole thing.
Absolutely. And talking about coming back with a bang, as I'm sure you will do this coming weekends, coming out of WWE NXT UK, you certainly hit the UK Indies with a bang, because I think about 5 days after you left that company, you was the Riot Cabaret Women's World Champion. So talk about coming back with a bang and with an impact. Mm-hmm. You certainly did it with Riot Cabaret. So you know, it kind of, you know, happens almost overnight for you. I mean, how does it feel? You're still the Riot Cabaret Women's World Champion, but that must have been a hell of a thrill to win that championship so early on after coming out of WWE.
It really was. Like I said, that was only 5 days after I left WWE. So just say I could do with a pick-me-up at that time.
Oh, yeah.
Had that chip on my shoulder. I went in there definitely feeling like I had something to prove, especially because Harley Hudson had already earned her shot at being the inaugural women's champion, whereas I'd been just planted in there. I mean, you know, I've done a few things in my time. I think I deserve that spot. But yeah, certainly feeling like I wanted to come back with a bang. I wanted to make a statement. Luckily, the very, very talented James Musselwhite was there as well. So I you know, said at the time, I was like, please do me a very quick turnaround on a cool picture of me looking badass with a title so I can let people know I'm back. I've arrived back on the indies. I mean business. And yeah, he pulled through with that. And yeah, it was, I mean, Riot Cabaret I love so much. The team there are great. They really look after the wrestlers. The venue is fantastic. I felt like I was being treated too much for a first show back at the Indies. They've got, you know, like mirrors, and it was all nice and beautiful. Had the confetti for the title win, so I felt very, very lucky in that moment. Yeah, an amazing night.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to bring up some pictures, and I believe that this was the moment when you won. You mentioned the confetti, absolutely fantastic, and some pictures. There you are, looking very classy backstage with the championship. And of course, there we are with the Riot Cabaret Women's World Championship. And I mean, one of my questions leading into this interview was Riot Cabaret. I think it lends itself perfectly to a character such as Nina Samuels, like you say, with the setting, the Clapham Grand in London, and I think it really does kind of it lends itself perfectly to your career, your character and your personality. So it's kind of a bit of a match made in heaven, really. But as you just said, you know, the Clapham Grand, a fantastic venue, very, very grand, as the name would suggest. But and Riot Cabaret, a fairly new promotion, but seems to be heading in a really, really good direction.
Yeah, they are. They're fantastic. They know what they're doing. They've got a nice mix of fans in terms of you've got your loyal wrestling fans, but you've also got your casual fans. You have some people there that don't normally go to wrestling shows, but maybe they attend other events at the Clapham Grand and see that this being a fun sort of alternative night out. So it's a great mix. And so the venue's beautiful, and yeah, the promoters, they appreciate the theatrics, which is of course right down my alley. So yeah, I'm very, very proud to be their women's champion.
Absolutely. And just a few shots, as you said, a very enthusiastic crowd at the Clapham Grand for Riot Cabaret. I have to get down there soon to check it out with my own eyes. But some shots there, obviously, that's Rain Leverkusen. We'll talk about her a bit later. But the action is always superb. The talents are always highly motivated. And like I say, who wouldn't be in a setting and a venue such as that? And there she is, the beautiful Nina Samuels with the championship once again. But let's... Oh, absolutely. A fantastic picture. Let's talk about another one of your highlights. We have to talk about Japan because now I was kind of surprised when I did my research to find out that your recent tour, your recent visit of Japan was your first tour of Japan. So a bit of a bucket list and a big check in the box there for you, Nina. But how did that kind of tour and that experience first come about?
So I got quite close with Meiko Satomura during my time in NXT UK, and I think about a week after the releases, got a message saying, "I'd like to bring you to Japan." So of course I leapt at the opportunity because, of course, there are various different ways of going to New Japan. Going to Japan, like so, Eve's got their relationship with Tokyo Joshi Pro. There's Stardom as well, so I knew it was like pretty much immediately after the releases. I was like, well, now I can go to Japan. This is going to make it worth it. So I was sort of thinking about what move I was going to make, and then make her message me. I was like, well, this is perfect because I've got a great relationship with her already. The wrestlers in Sendai are incredible, and I knew I'd be looked after very well by Meiko as well. And it helped the fact that Millie was going to be going out at the same time. So I was like, right, I've got a friend out there. So yeah, everything just seemed to align really, and it was as much of, if not more of a dream than I thought it was going to be. Like, honestly, one of the best times of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to bring up some pictures here, but that's probably a Riot Cabaret one. But here we are over in Japan for Sendai Girls, and is the Nina Goroshi. You can tell that move a mile off. Fantastic move for sure. And I just love the way you torture your opponents, whether it's over here in the UK or over in the Far East. And looking like you're enjoying every single moment of that. And you got a chance to wrestle a wide range of talent over there, Nina, from some of the younger, less experienced girls to some of the legends. And I see Aja Kong there, somebody that I watched probably 25, 30 years ago, and many more. But tell us about some of an extraordinary talent. I remember watching Aja Kong and Manami Toyota from back in the day, All-Star Women's, and it was huge. Used to get all these tapes imported from America of all the Japanese promotions, and All Japan Women was certainly in my collection. But to tell us about some of the talent that you did perform with, and especially maybe some of the less experienced talent. What was your experience of wrestling those, and including some of the legends and the more experienced ones as well, Nina?
So, I mean, tagging with Aja was just unreal. So that was my first match in Japan was at Korakuen Hall, tagging with Aja Kong. Like, wow. When Meiko messaged me and said that was what the match was going to be, I was like, casual, sure. But also tagging with Hiroyo as well. Hiroyo is phenomenal. Some people may be familiar with her work from the Mae Young Classic. She was great as well. It was nice. Well, Millie was also in my first match there, so it was a 6-woman tag. So it was nice having a bit of familiarity there. First person I looked up with was Miyuki Takase, who has just recently come over for Eve. So everyone in Eve got to see how amazing she is. The women there were just incredible. So nice, so welcoming, so talented, like so charismatic. Like the effort that they put into their craft is amazing, and getting to train with them was great too. One of the newer girls who I worked was Minami. So she was my first singles match and my last match while I was there in Japan. So it was amazing getting to work with her. She's only, I think, 18 years old.
Right.
It was just so talented. Like I think Millie said that she worked like 5 years ago, and Minami was about 13 or something. And she was good then, and some sensational now. So she's definitely someone to keep your eye on, because such an amazing talent. And yeah, just honestly, that whole thing was the best experience. I can't rave about it enough, and I cannot wait to go back.
Well, this is it. I think you were over there for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, Nina.
Yeah, just shy of 3 weeks that I was there. So a good tour.
Yeah, and you were out there with Millie, as you explained. But let's say I've had so many guests on this show that have gone over to the Far East, gone over to Japan, and said that it's a life-changing experience from the culture, the food, the people, the sights and the sounds. I'm guessing that you took away some of them life-changing experiences with you back to the UK.
Yeah, for sure. Like when I was younger, I was such a fussy eater, and I still have certain things that I'm fussy about. But I did make an effort to try lots of things there. So, beef tongue is a Sendai delicacy, so I had that a few times. Not mad at sushi. I don't eat fish, but I tried some like egg sushi and tofu sushi. Not a big fan of that, but loads of food out there was great. Shabu shabu was my favorite. That was our absolute favorite. I think me and Millie got shabu shabu about 3 or 4 times while we were there. So yeah, that was great. Loads of amazing food. Mako, when I arrived, said, "Oh, make sure that you try some of the desserts in the 7-Elevens and Family Marts." I definitely took that way too much to heart and ate way too much cake and things like that. So yeah, next time I need to be a bit more reserved when it comes to that. But yeah, just such a phenomenal experience. Like the culture there is very different, but it's so interesting just seeing the way their culture is, and it's like different styles in wrestling as well. Like I didn't want to change the way I wrestle, because it was like I bring to the table what I bring to the table, but even certain things like they're so loud there. Like, so I just fed off that, like the volume, they're just screaming at each other the whole time, and I really like fed off that. So I enjoyed that a lot. And just their whole body language is a lot bigger as well. I think maybe because there was the language barrier with matches, so we had to have big body language. I honestly can't say enough good things about it. The whole experience was overwhelming. Like, I started crying when I got off the plane, then I started crying when I was at the airport ready to leave. I really wasn't ready to come home at all.
Oh, amazing. And a few people that have got in touch already. We've got Adam Wright watching us live via YouTube. Hey, Nina, honoured to watch this. Can't wait to see you and Alexxis Falcon at Progress, but we'll see you kick Lana Austin's ass and take that title. So, Adam, hoping that you might be able to add to your collection, possibly with the Progress Women's Championship. But there we go. Let's get Alexxis Falcon out of the way first. Hey, yes. We've had Millie C reach out to us watching us live.
Annoying that Alexxis kept me busy away from the title so long. Like, I've been in Progress since October last year. I've been back and not even been close to the title picture, because I've just been occupied with Alexxis. Curse her. So yes, let's get Alexxis out of the way, and then I can move on to better things there.
Absolutely. We will talk a little bit about Alexxis very, very soon. But you've just kind of reminded me that that's right. You've been kept away from the title picture all this time, thanks to Alexxis Falcon. So we will talk about that very soon. Millie C, thank you for watching, Millie. Congratulations on 300 episodes, Johners. Thank you very much. And Millie C again. So getting to work with Aja Kong and Lady Godzilla is unreal and absolutely deserved. Absolutely. So Millie C is a big fan of yours.
Yes, thank you, Millie C. As I said, such an amazing experience getting to work with them, and it feels like all the many years that I've put in, it sort of pays off when you get experiences like that.
Absolutely. And another question that came in before we went live. Now, let me select the right one here. This is from Darren Ewan. How did it feel to return to the UK scene after your time in NXT UK? And did you feel like you had a point to prove? So I think you said earlier that maybe you had a bit of a chip on your shoulder, and that, yes, you did. But how would you like to answer Darren's question there?
Yes, 100%. I had a point to prove. you know, I had an amazing time on NXTUK, but I don't think it would be a surprise to anyone to hear. I wish I had big matches there. I wish I had matches. So I felt like I hadn't, you know, got really sunk my teeth into a big match and a big story for quite a long time. So I was very excited to come back, and, you know, definitely I felt like I wanted to prove to people that I was champion worthy, that I was a main player, and that I could deliver in those big matches and in those big moments, and that I was someone that everyone should be talking about, not just for my interview skills, but for my wrestling as well. So,
well, absolutely, yeah.
it was very much something to prove when I came back, and I feel like I've been doing a good job of that since then. I've had, you know, some of my favorite matches of my career since I've come back to the independents, and more matches on the horizon that I expect to top those as well. So yeah, it's been great coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. And with all of that experience that you gained over in WWE NXT UK, and obviously they train you hard there, and you had years on the indies before you got signed to WWE. Coming back, you've obviously a bit of a resurgence for yourself, and besides the recent injury, I think you're kind of in the form of your life. But where would you kind of say you are as an overall performer, athlete, and kind of the entire Nina Samuels package in 2023? Where do you feel you are kind of in yourself? Where's your mindset at the moment as far as where you are as an overall performer?
I mean, to me, you never stop growing as a performer. So I never like to say, oh, I'm a finished product or anything like that. I'm always learning, I'm always growing. It's a difficult question to answer right now because I haven't been in a match for like 6.5, nearly 7 weeks. So I'm not at a point where I can say I'm feeling at the top of my game right now, because I do need to build myself back up. So I've got a strict training regime this week, but in that time away, there's lots of other learning that I'm doing. I'm watching, I'm scouting. So there's a lot of work going on up here. But I've always tried to be as well-rounded as a performer as I can. You know, like I like to think I deliver in the ring, deliver on the mic, deliver with promotion, social media, branding, and not just delivering in the ring, but also delivering the moments, the character moments, and trying to be as well-rounded as I can. Like, the feeling that I always have is I want to make sure that there's only one of me, and that if I'm not available on a particular day, I want to make it really hard to replace me. I don't want anyone to be able to just be swapped in for anyone. Like, I want to fill my niche, and, you know, I want the main character vibes. You know,
Absolutely,
main character vibes is always what I'm aiming for.
Absolutely. And speaking of main character vibes, we've got to talk about your costumes, your outfits, your gear, your look, the overall presentation, your physique as well. And you obviously put a lot of hard work, dedication in the gym, and towards your craft. And like I say, I think a lot of people, maybe it goes unnoticed to the spectators and the fans, but for yourself, you've been in the business for maybe 9 years now, but that hard work and dedication and persistence has been there for a long time now, and it's got you to kind of where you are now, hasn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's been a long grind, a lot of hard work. Like, I treat this like this is my job. It's not my side hustle, it's not my weekend gig, this is my job. And, you know, ever since I signed with WWE and left my other job, I was like, well, this is it. Like, I am living my life as a professional athlete, as a professional performer. So I do take it very seriously. Like, I take my diet seriously. Baking aside, I love to bake, but I eat them myself in moderation. I take my diet seriously, taking my exercise seriously, working on myself, constantly investing in my ring gear, and not just that, investing in, you know, non-ring clothes as well. Like, if anyone who watched the Nina Samuels show knows that my pink wardrobe is expansive. So yeah, putting that time, like, presenting myself the way I want to be seen. You know, I want to be seen as a star, so I need to look like a star all the time, making sure I'm on point. So yeah, I put in a lot of time and energy into my craft. So yeah, this isn't an accident. Like the way I am now is a result of lots and lots of hard work.
Absolutely. And we've alluded to it once or twice already in this interview already, but we have to talk about this. Progress Super Strong Style 16. And I think 2 weeks today will be your match, day 3 of Super Strong Style, Nina, against
Yes.
Alexxis Falcon. As you said, pretty much your entire Progress run since returning in 2022, coming into 2023, has been with Alexxis Falcon. It's been a bitter back and forth feud. And you do have this big match on day 3, the Clock Strikes Midnight match, which is an interesting match because we don't really know what the stipulation is going into it. And every time at random intervals, when the clock strikes midnight, the stipulations will change again. So give us your kind of mindset going into this one, Nina, because it's a fascinating match. Obviously, 2 very experienced, very well-respected professionals on the UK scene. But even the best pro wrestler anywhere can't surely prepare for a match like this because you don't know what sort of match you're going to face, surely.
Exactly. It's very much uncharted territory. So even in terms of trying to prepare for the match, you know, I can watch various matches of various stipulations, but you know, we don't know. If there's there's a lot of mystery surrounding the match, but I mean, that along with the uncharted territory-ness of it means that we're going to be able to get very creative. And I think a match like that lends itself very well to both me and Alexxis Falcon. You know, we're both very creative individuals in different ways. And what I've loved about it is just like the way that we've had the chance to tell this story. You know, it's been amazing. Like, you know, like I said before, if I wanted to come back to the Indies, I really wanted, you know, some good stories, good matches to really sink my teeth into. And Progress have been great at allowing us the free, like allowing us the platform, but also allowing us the freedom to tell the story the way that we wanted to tell the story. And I think at the start, I don't think we knew where it was going to go exactly, but you know, a lot of things have just naturally evolved, and I think the match is going to be something really special, hopefully that people will be talking about for a long time afterwards. And I know that me and Alexxis are both going to be hell-bent on stealing the show, which, given the lineup that they have for Strong Style this year, is no small feat. So I know we've got our work cut out for us, but I know we're going to both be putting in the work. And yeah, I'm very confident that we're going to make something really, really special at Day 3 on Strong Style.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's the only featured match that's actually been announced so far, and I think that's been the case for a little while now. I'm sure they might announce more featured matches over the next couple of weeks, or I certainly hope so, because we are less than 2 weeks away from
tag title match.
Yes, of course, Sunshine Machine and Smoking Aces.
But yeah, you're right. For a long time, it was the only match that was announced. So I think our match was announced back in February on the show, and then I can't remember when they announced the first person for Strong Style, but it was only in the last month. So for a long time, Strong Style was being sold on me and Alexxis.
On your match.
Now, on our match, yeah. They hadn't announced which day it was on, so anyone that really wanted to come and see our match at the time had to just chance it and book a ticket for all 3. But yeah, so even you know, having the honor of being the first match announced for such a big historic weekend, and you know, it being the only thing advertising the show for a long time, you know, the pressure was on. But as I say, I think we've put in the work for that, and I really believe that we're gonna, you know, thrive under that pressure and live up to all the hype that's gone into this match. I really believe that.
Absolutely. And Adam sent another message through. Thank you very much, Adam. The feud with Alexxis has and will be my favourite women's wrestling feud ever.
Yes, Adam.
There we go. And thank you very much. We've had a few other people reach out to Craig Gordon, a good friend of mine and fan of the show. Well done on 300 episodes, Jonas. And this person's name hasn't come up. If you're watching this via Facebook and you want your name and your icon picture to show up, just go to streamyard.com/Facebook. That's streamyard.com/Facebook, and they will be able to see your name and your icon picture. But this person said that their first Nina match was seeing her against Session Moth Martine at Rise in February. It was great. So was that February this year, I'm guessing?
Yeah, that was February this year. Yeah, I say at Rise. So it was part of their tournament weekend with ICW. So most of the weekend was a deathmatch tournament, although my match was definitely not a death match. For this, and I'm sort of because Rise is all about the death matches and the hardcore fans, and I come out in my pink sparkly get up, so I'm almost that anti-Rise character. So whereas Session Moth Martina had put in a hell of a shift that weekend, being very, very hardcore. So I was there to pick apart the remaining pieces of Session Moth after she had done all of those brutal matches. So it was always fun working Session Moth, and that was definitely a fun one.
It sounds like in typical Nina Samuels fashion, but it sounds like a lot of fun. I'm going to have to try and catch up with that one for sure. But I want to kind of switch to WWE now. And am I right in thinking that your first match inside of a WWE ring or maybe an NXT ring was at the Download Festival in maybe 2018? Would that be about right?
Yes, correct.
How was that experience?
It was actually on my mum's birthday. And we were in the middle of a family holiday to Centre Parks at the time. But where Download Festival was only an hour drive. So when they asked me to do it, I was like, Mum, do you mind if I just take a day off of the holiday? So I literally drove there the night before, did the match, and then drove straight back on holiday afterwards. So a casual WWE debut in the middle of a family holiday.
Would that have coincided with a tryout? Did you have a tryout maybe around that time?
So my WWE tryout was actually in 2015.
Oh wow! Okay,
so a long time before that, and they liked me at the time, but at the time, there was no sign of any Mae Young Classics, no sign of NXT UK or anything like that. So they just said they liked me, but at that time they had a lot of me. So as in, sort of 5'6" brunettes. I'm actually 5'7", but apparently that wasn't enough difference. But they'd just recently signed the Iconics. The Bella Twins were still very big at that time. So they just said, from a casting perspective, there wasn't a gap for me at that time. But to stay in touch, which I did. And then, I wasn't under contract at that time, and they didn't tell me the match was a tryout. But I suppose there certainly were elements of they were taking a look at me. So at that point, I'd already been there and taken my pictures to be part of the NXT UK roster. So that had happened before that.
Yeah.
So I was already in the fold at that point. But not under contract, so I suppose. Although it wasn't officially told it was a tryout match, and I'm sure they were watching me with keen eyes to see how long they wanted to keep me around for.
But I'm guessing that they obviously liked what they saw, because you would have been signed pretty soon after that match at Download, because you then started featuring in the tapings that started later on that summer. Probably so the Download was in June. I think the taping started about July or August. So I'm guessing that you would have been signed somewhere in between there.
No, actually, I wasn't signed until my contract started at the end of September that year. So I did the first 2 tapings, not under contract.
Oh, how interesting.
A very frustrating time for me, because some people were on contract and I was not. So, whilst everyone else was finally getting to live the life that I said I ended up living, dedicating my life to being a professional athlete, I was still juggling my very, very demanding day job with those tapings. And in my job that I had at the time, my contract said I wasn't allowed to have another job. So working for WWE was kept very secret. So it was almost like I was leading a kind of double life at the time, trying to hide it from work. But I remember after the second taping, I was just, some other girls had been offered contracts at that taping and I still hadn't been. So I remember being very frustrated and sort of wondering. And I think in my frustration, I just sent an email. I was like, look, what do I need to do? I was like, I really want to be part of this company. I've been putting in the work, but right now I said I can't dedicate as much time as I want to this because I'm juggling a full-time job. So I just said, what is it that I need to do? And they said, we understand your position, let us speak to Triple H. And then it was a couple of weeks later that they decided they wanted to offer me a contract. So had I sent that email or not, I don't know. Maybe it would have come, maybe it wouldn't have come. But this is why I always say to people that I coach, I'm like, shy kids get no sweets. It was a saying that a friend of mine used to say to me. And I guess it's another version of don't ask, don't get. But whether I'd sent the email or not, I don't. I'd like to think the contract would have come at some point. But I just want to stress them, like, I want to be putting in more work than I'm putting into. But under our current agreement, I have to have another job and I can't put in that work. So, it was about the September. And I got the email while I was at work. Luckily, it was late. I was staying late and no one else was in the office. So no one could hear
celebrate.
Me squealing with excitement. But that was a really big moment for me. And I think after that, I really felt like things were changing for me. Like I could really start working on my physique, start spending time and doing extra training all the time. So I felt like I really stepped up professionalism from that point and really stepped up my craft.
Absolutely. And I suppose for somebody who's dedicated, such as yourself, and enjoys the grind and putting in the hard work, having that time and that ability to train and hone your craft at the UKPC must have been kind of, a fantastic opportunity and a bit of a dream come true for you because you could really pursue your passion.
Yeah, exactly. Like being able to fully throw myself in was such a game changer because it's always difficult when you're, so I have a lot of sympathy now for people who are juggling a full-time job with work on the indies, which is most people on the indies, because it is really hard. Like, I think I was averaging probably about 1 day off a month working in my job, at least 50 hours a week. I worked in events, so sometimes it was, 20-hour days, things like that. Like it was a really, really hard slog. So being able to just fully focus on everything, just take care of myself, make sure I was getting enough rest, doing meal prep, make sure I'm eating well and feeding my body well, getting in gym training, getting in lots of rehab. I felt like I was like, I'm a proper wrestler now, but I saw the difference. And, I think having that mindset, it really does step up everything that you're doing.
Yeah. And you were, I think you were featured in or took part in just about all of the tapings from that July 2018 through till March 2020. And then, of course, the world shut down and there were no more tapings for a little while anyway. And did you enjoy that experience of performing in front of the NXT UK fans in various locations around the UK? You must have a lot of really fond memories from those tapings and traveling with the WWE.
Yeah, I do. I've got so many amazing memories. It was a great experience. Like it was a very nerve-wracking experience. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of things to think about. The matches are shorter, but there's a lot more to think about than there would be in match than the independents because you've got certain beats that you need to hit, certain timings, certain cameras. It was a great learning experience because there was so much to it. So even though I was on edge a lot of the time, I did learn so much, and I had a great time. Like I say, like I missed touring when we came back from after COVID. I missed going around to the touring crowds because it was just such a different experience compared to it being in BT Sports Studios. BT Sports Studios looked great, I think. Like the presentation of it was really professional looking, but I missed the touring crowd so much. Like I think one of my favorite crowds was probably in Glasgow. They were a wild crowd, and it was great because that was where I got to have my championship match against Tony Storm. So it was a great venue to have that because the crowd was so amazing there. So yeah, I do miss those crowds. There were some great crowds.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had the pleasure of going to 2 of the NXT UK takeovers, the one in Cardiff, which was still it will live with me as one of the best wrestling shows I've ever been to. The atmosphere, the quality of the matches, and then Takeover
That
Blackpool
takeover was
2.
incredible.
It really was. And obviously the tag title match when Mark Andrews and Flash won the tag titles, and being in Cardiff, the hometown, obviously the main event with Walter and Tyler Bate, which was just mind-blowing even thinking about it today. And then Blackpool Takeover 2, which was another phenomenal show, and that was shortly before everything kind of got closed down. Obviously
really soon.
All of the talent kind of had time at home before it resumed at the BT Sports Studios from about the October or November of 2020. And like I say, it was a different vibe, a different environment. And obviously to start off with, you were just playing to the camera, to the audience at home and to nobody around the ring. And I mean, as a natural kind of entertainer and performer yourself, Nina, I've spoken to 1 or 2 before, like Charles Crowley and Cara Noir, that have this acting background similar to yourself. Did you find that an advantage when it came to performing in front of nobody?
I don't think I really thought about playing up on previous acting experiences, really. Like, the main thing that I found was I felt like a slightly different level of intensity, because whereas normally I'd obviously be very focused on appeasing the crowd because I am an entertainer, I was solely focused on my opponent. So yeah, the intensity definitely felt different. It felt more like a proper fight feel because you've only got each other. You know, you could hear a pin drop in there, so you're hearing everything. You're hearing your opponent breathing. Like, it was a much more like raw feeling. So yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily that, you know, any acting experience played into that really, but it was a very different feeling in there. And I felt when the crowd came back, it was almost very odd. Like, you had to sort of take extra moments in certain times because, you know, like, oh, okay, audience are reacting to this, let's let it breathe a second. So that took getting used to when the crowd came back in. But even when the crowd came back, it was, you know, I think initially like 50 people all sat really far away from each other with the masks on. So they weren't exactly the loudest crowd because it doesn't, you know, it doesn't promote for people feeling really lively and feeling like they want to be loud in that scenario. So it didn't feel like an all of a sudden, yes, live crowds are back. It felt very much like a slow build as, you know, the crowd got more and more freedom as the numbers were able to grow a bit more. It was a slow build back to having fans.
Absolutely. And a couple of questions that have come through about your WWE experience. And first of all, we've got Danny Kay watching us via YouTube. Who was your best, your buddies when you were in NXT UK? So I'm guessing that you had a few that you maybe enjoyed spending time with and hung out with between the tapings. But did you have anybody in particular that you enjoyed hanging out with more than most?
So the main girls I spent my time with was Ginny, Isla Dawn, and Aoife Valkyrie. They were the main girls I spent my time with. I also get on really well with Danny Luna, Millie McKenzie, Aaliyah James. So we had a really great bunch of girls there. There were a lot of people that were amazing to work with, and loads of the guys are great as well. You know, one of our favorite things was we had our Jenga sessions in the hotel lobby. You know, you've got to entertain yourself how you can when you're stuck in the same hotel for 2 weeks. So who else are my buddies? I used to have like Love Island viewing sessions with Mark Andrews, Flash Morgan Webster, and Wild Boar. Secret Love Island fans there. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I never had Wild Boar pegged as a Love Island fan.
Of course. Yeah, loads of good friends like Jack Starr's another one. I train with him sometimes. He just recently did an ultra marathon, so big congrats to him. Sid Scala's a good friend of mine. Saxon Huxley as well, killing it in Japan. Sam Grabwell was always a laugh. So yeah, loads and loads of great people there. Like we had a really, really fun time as a locker room, and we really became a family while we were there. So I've got so many friendships from NXT UK that I look on really fondly.
Absolutely. And a certain Tom Hollylee is watching us via YouTube. Hey, Tom, what's your crowning achievement in your baking career? So you mentioned that you're a keen baker earlier on. Have you got a crowning achievement or a favourite bit of baking that you've done over the years? Thanks for the question, Tom.
I don't know about a crowning achievement. I mean, pre-lockdown, my mum and I made a wedding cake for my brother. So very, very proud of that. I'm getting married in August, and my mum's doing the cake for that, and I'm helping her decorate it. So I'm looking forward to that. Charlie Morgan and Jetta, I'm doing their wedding cake, so that's going to be an honor doing that. I mean, my baking is exceptional, to be honest, so it's hard to pick out a standout, but it's been fun bringing the bakery to a few shows recently, and selling them on the merchandise table, because it's a bit of extra moolah, but also, it's chance to share my baking with everyone else and have chats about baking. It's just a different, adds an extra, like, a window of communication with the fans for that. So I bake a lot of good shit. It's hard to pick out the best one.
Absolutely, I'm going to be looking out for your cakes now at Super Strong Style, and maybe have to purchase one or two to keep the energy levels up, the sugar levels up. But
I don't know if I'll be able to sell them at Strong Style. I don't know if I'll be able to stand after that match. So we'll see. No promises for Strong Style weekend, but I'll try my best.
No worries. But we're just sticking with WWE and NXT UK for a little bit longer. You had, a wide range of matches with the likes of Xia Brookside, of course, Emil, Isla Dawn, Millie McKenzie. You even had a match with Ivy Nile from the Black and Gold brand, of course. And then in 2019, you fought Rhea Ripley, the current SmackDown Women's Champion, of course. So some fun opponents there. Some you fought more than others, but I mean, I'm very impressed that you got a match under your belt against Rhea Ripley, doing some amazing things over in SmackDown.
Yeah, that was a big surprise, that match, because we both wrestled on the tapings the day before, and we thought we had a day off on day 2. So I don't know, but I definitely stayed up very, very late the night before. Not drinking to excess, but stayed up very, very late because it was the first SmackDown since they did the brand split. So I remember, or they'd just done a draft or something. So I remember it was a big premiere. Maybe it was the first one on Fox. I remember it was a big episode. So a few of us were in the bar, just staying up, chatting, talking about that. The next morning, ate a very big breakfast. Then in catering, ate a pie the size of my head. Then I get someone come up to me a few hours before saying, we've added in an extra dark patch. It's going to be with Rhea Ripley. So I'm like, wow, no biggie. I think because they knew that it was going to be her last taping at that point and wanted to give her a sort of farewell match. I looked at my bag. I thought I didn't even have my gear because I'd had to wash my gear. Then I found some bits and pieces assembled. Something, definitely a great honor that I was able to wrestle her. So cool getting to say I wrestled Rhea Ripley in the Leisure Centre, and then 6 months later she was on WrestleMania. That was fun.
Absolutely, and I'm just going to bring up some pictures from your NXT UK days, and some fun times, some fun memories there. Of course, I think that's possibly Millie just about to get a drop kick to the back there. There you are in your stunning pink. Look at that picture. That is a phenomenal picture. It really is a wonderful picture there. We've got a question that came through from Dennis Day Jr. Before we went live. What was the hardest thing to get used to working under WWE NXT UK brand when compared to the indie scene? So just to answer his question, what was the hardest thing to get used to as compared to working on the indies?
I think the hardest thing really was getting used to working with match producers and match agents, understanding what they wanted and how to deliver very specifically what they wanted for that match. Because obviously in the independents, you used to have more creative freedom. So it got, and that time went on. NXTUK, you build up the trust and you totally get that freedom. But certainly initially, it was a case of coming up with something you wanted to do with the match and having in the back of your head a plan B, a plan B, a plan D, a plan E, because things are constantly changing. And even then, you know, you could get right before the match and all of a sudden have to change something because something's happened earlier on in the match. They're like, we can't repeat that, or we need to cut time from this match, we need to add time. So yeah, getting used to working with their style, working out what they wanted, and how to deliver on what they wanted. And just stylistically, it is different from the independents. You know, it's a much slower build. So on the independents, you're dealing with working for that one show and telling a story just within that one match. But with WWE, you have to see the bigger picture, and you have longer time to tell certain stories. So you have to drip feed things a bit more. So yeah, that was probably the most difficult thing to get used to begin with, but you know, a great challenge as well.
Absolutely, and I'm curious to know what was the catalyst behind you wanting to become a pro wrestler in the first place. I think we mentioned at the top of the show that this is your 9th year in the business, and feel free to correct me on that. But what was the catalyst that kind of made you think, yep, I'm going to find a training school and I'm going to start training to become a pro wrestler?
Short answer is a quarter life crisis. That's the short version. But before that, I'd gone sort of back from dance contract, singing contract to acting contract. But I'd wanted to progress to another level, but kept finding I was sort of stuck at wall. One big thing was a body thing. I was trying to make my body fit into, you know, the classic dancer physique, which my body did not want to be in. And, you know, there were a lot of times where I get rejected for not having the right body, or even if I got onto a contract, then having, you know, seen as what was the shame of having to have extra panels sewn into my costumes because I didn't fit into the standard ones, or being given an alternative costume, but being told, but we'd much rather you in this costume, so can you diet to get into this costume? And a lot of that, and just in general, a lot of dancing is about, certainly with the contracts I was doing, is about fitting in with a lineup. So you're having to tone down certain things to fit in with the way that everyone else is fitting in with, and trying to find a balance. And I think I remember at the time, just before I started wrestling, I was in the middle of having had, I think, 11 auditions in 14 days or something. So,
wow,
you know, constant grind of traveling every day for the cattle call auditions. And I remember just feeling really low about myself, not happy in the skin that I was in. And when I was watching wrestling one evening, I remember actually seeing it was the Bella twins, and looking at Nikki Bella and looking at her physique and thinking how incredible she looked. And how in the dance world, her body would not be a body that would be praised, but I could recognize how strong and powerful and womanly she looked. And I felt like that was the sort of body that I was fighting against. That was how my body wanted to be. You know, I naturally build muscle quite easily, and that's not necessarily seen as something desirable in the dancing world. You know, toned, yes, but having really muscular physiques, no. So purely on a whim, after having a breakdown of exhaustion from those auditions, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try that. So I spoke to a director who I'd worked with years before, because I knew he knew about wrestling, because he was working on a wrestling film at the time and had met a lot of wrestlers. And he put me in touch with 4FW in Swindon, who were training his wrestlers for the film. And now, I did not think twice about traveling all the way from East London to Swindon, which is about a 6-hour round trip to train. It did not occur to me to go on Google and look at wrestling schools, because to me, I was like, well, surely you have to get into a wrestling school. You can't just turn up. So the fact that he had got me into this school was a big deal to me. So I was going to make that trip. So I was going to travel. So I think I did that trip about 5 times before I got a new singing contract, which meant the hours with that, I didn't have 6 hours spare in the day to travel to Swindon and back. So I took a bit of time off, and then I went to a WrestleMania viewing party, and I messaged Nadia Sapphire, who I'd met at the school, just saying, oh, how much I miss wrestling. So she said, why don't you try a school in London? I'm like, what? There are schools in London? So I found London School of Lucha Libre, which turned out to be a 15-minute bus ride from my flat at the time. So I went in, and then that was that. But I mean, immediately from the first time I got in a wrestling ring, it felt like everything I'd done up to that point, it was a nice amalgamation of all the different skills that I had. Because obviously with dancing, you're very used to looking at something that someone else is doing and replicating it on your body. I always had a fascination with partner work. So when I was at college, I was always choreographing the partner work dances. And, you know, I was fascinated with lifts and how 2 bodies work together. And what I loved about it was the fact that in wrestling, you can create whatever character you want. You can choose whatever physique you want to have. You can wrestle in whatever style you want. So whereas I've been used to toning myself down to fit in with other people, I was like, right, now I can turn up the bits I want to turn up and just, you know, completely create my own person. And that was what I really loved about it. So when I started, it completely felt like a light bulb moment of like, wow, everything that I've been doing in life now feels like it's been for this.
Absolutely. And we have to talk about this individual here, Diablesse Rosa. There we go.
Yes.
What a stunning individual, an awesome mask. This was obviously for Lucha Britannia. There you are with the championship there. You were there, world champion 4 times, Nina, as Diablesse Rosa. And we'll bring up some of them pictures a bit later on. But Lucha Britannia, alongside the London School of Lucha Libre, that was a big part of your growth, wasn't it? And a big part of your early career, certainly for the first 3 or 4 years. And tell us a bit about that experience, because a very unique school and a very unique promotion to work for. And so many wonderful experiences, but the way that the fans are at those sort of shows, and the commentators being heard over the matches, and just the rawness of it, but the wildness of that sort of environment and the matches, it brought an entirely different energy to pretty much anything I'd ever seen before. But give us your experience and your memories of working for Lucha Britannia.
The absolute best time. Like I met friends for life. Like some of my best friends to this day are friends I met at Lucha Britannia. It was a wild place, a wild place. It was like we were this weird dysfunctional family. It very much felt like a family vibe, and that we were all in it together. And I was there for my that I am charisma and character. I learned a lot there as well. And you know, wrestling under a mask, it has its own challenges. With you learn to get really big with your body language, because I'd watch stuff back and think, wow, I really thought I was giving it there, but you know, the mask obviously hides a certain amount. So it taught me so much. But the Lucha Britannia shows were just wild. Like I learned so much there, had the absolute best times. Like it felt like it was just a fun night out with my friends, essentially, where we all get to wrestle. And you know, most of my main event experience came from there, because as I say, I was the first female to win the title there. And as far as I know at the time, the first female in Europe to have won a main championship, you know, to not have won the women's championship, but the main championship of a promotion. So that was, you know, a huge honor, them putting that faith in me. And, you know, I have to credit so many of the great guys that I worked there for really teaching me about how to be a main eventer. And yeah, just, I can't credit Lucha Libre and Lucha Britannia enough, because like I said, was a family that welcomed me into wrestling, taught me loads, and like you said, the shows were just so much fun, like so different to anything else. And they had their return recently in an event with I was meant to be working there running as a Diablesse. Unfortunately, I couldn't because of the concussion, but I've seen the pictures and the videos. It looks like it was amazing. So I think that that's just the start, and that we'll get a Lucha Britannia return because it's so special. It's such a special company, such a special promotion and show, that I hope more people get the chance to watch it. So I really hope that that was just the start of bigger things for them.
Absolutely. And I briefly flashed up this picture here, but a couple of photos. Now, I'm not sure which matches was from, but you had a series of matches with Tom Dawkins, Cara Noir, Pavo Real, of course, in 2017, I think the October of 2017, and then again in the January of 2018, and battling over the Lucha Britannia World Championship. And those matches, I think, stand out as possibly being some of the best and most historic matches of Lucha Britannia history. And certainly, you know, the violence and the drama and the action that the two of you brought in those three matches, they must be some of your highlights as well.
Oh, for sure. Like, he's such an incredible talent. And at that time, people didn't know it. Like, at that time, you know, he was still wrestling. It was under a different name at Lucha Britannia of Pavo Real. So
yeah,
Cara Noir was nowhere near the Cara Noir that we know now. He was in terms of talent, but not in terms of how many people knew who he was. So I felt so grateful that I got to work with him. He pushed me out of my comfort zone. I think he got a pop himself from trying to see what he could make me do each match that was out of my comfort zone. And really trying to push the boat with that. I remember when he finally debuted for Progress, and I think not long after the Natural Progression series that he was in was the show at Alexandra Palace, where he was a surprise opponent for Pete Dunne. And I remember I was watching the show backstage, but I came out into the crowd to watch that match, and I had tears in my eyes. I was just so happy for him in that moment that everyone was finally seeing like the talent that I and everyone at Lucha Britannia knew that he was. I'm so happy that he was finally getting his flowers because it was so deserved. But yeah, definitely highlights of Lucha Britannia were working with him, like moments. And yeah, we had 3 matches that I'm so proud of, and now I work with him regularly because I'm one of the coaches at his school at Play Fight. So it's nice getting to work again in a different capacity. I would love us to be able to have a match again because I think we've both evolved a lot since that time. So you say it was 2017. It was a long time ago. We've both evolved so much since then. So I would love to have another match with him one time, putting it out in the universe. Hopefully we can make that happen.
Absolutely. And my final question about Lucha Britannia is the incredible mask that you've got there. Now, you pride yourselves on wonderful outfits, incredible gear. But what's the inspiration behind that mask? Because I know that typically with Lucha Britannia, a lot of the talent would be wearing masks. But that is a bit of a unique mask. And obviously your hair is still flowing out the back there. But tell us a bit about that mask. Who came up with the design?
So I would love to say that I had a big input in creating the character and designing the mask. I did not. So the when the promoter of Lucha Britannia, Gary Vanderhorn, his partner at the time, did a lot of making, not just wrestling, for various events and things like that. So that mask in that picture, which was the first Rosa mask, was one that had already been made. So I was only told, I think, a day or 2 before my debut there that was the character I was going to be, and I was just told, yeah, I got this mask for you. Well, I was shown a picture of 2 pink devil masks, and said, you're going to wear one of these. And on the day, he brought along both masks, and I got to try on each one. And I decided that that one was the one for me, with the ponytail cut out. I felt comfortable in that. I had to make a couple of modifications to it just because of the frills, which they would get in my eyes. So after a couple of shows, I sewed them together just so I had more space to see. And luckily, the one set of gear that I had at the time matched with that mask. And I think it was actually the commentator of the show that made up the backstory of the character, which was that her mother was an angel and her father was a devil. So the red and white made pink, and she looks like a devil but fights for good like an angel. I think it was Benjamin Luch, our amazing ring announcer / host of the show, who came up with that story. But it's because of that character that it's actually the reason why pink is my signature color, because my gear that I had for my first gear happened to match. And then when I got, that was a gear that I'd sort of mishmashed and made myself with a few bits and pieces. And when it came time to get my first professional gear made, I wanted to get it made pink so that I could also use it for Lucha Britannia. And then for each gear after that, I got it made pink so that I could also double it up as gear for Lucha. And then by that point, it had just become part of my identity. But the Diablesse Rosa is the origin for why pink is my signature color.
There we go. What a fascinating story. And a few people that have reached out recently, watching us live. Millie C again, thank you so much, Millie, for watching and reaching out. You're one of the hardest, best workers on the scene in every way. You're also one of my favorites, most favorites too. So you do such a great job. So thank you so much, Millie. And Eve, Riot Girls of Wrestling, watching. And evening. There we go. And funnily enough, we're going to be talking about we're going to be talking about Eve next. Now let's just revisit my notes here, because between 2017 and 2018, I think you wrestled your most amount of matches for Eve. In particular, Pro Wrestling Eve. So, like I say, a promotion that's very, very close to your heart. But give us some of the reasons why Eve has been so special to you in your career, certainly during those first few years, because I think the trend continues over 2022, 2023. You've wrestled more matches for them than you have any other promotion. But between 2017 and 2019, they were very, very important for you in your career, weren't they?
So important. So, I mean, I gave a lot of credit there to Lucha Britannia. I have to give the same credit to Eve. And across Eve and Lucha Britannia, what really shaped me to, become the wrestler that I am now. And WWE as well, but certainly building up before and signing Eve and Lucha Britannia is why I am the wrestler that I am and the performer that I am. Believe it or not, before Eve, I hadn't really worked much as a villain. I was mainly a bubbly, shiny pink babyface. But I'd worked one time for Dan on XW against Rio O'Reilly, and the plan was for me to be, both of us to be babyfaces, but I'd forgotten to send him my music. So he had some made that was from Cortina's song, which I was in a music video for. So he'd used that. And it wasn't the most pumping music, so I was like, you know what, I'll just be a heel today, I'll try it out. And because he'd seen me as that, he liked me as a heel, so I was like, okay, fine. So yeah, that was where I really relished in, my villainous behavior. Sorry, Sky Smithson, she's the villainess, but that was where I found my bad side, shall we say. And also, talking about giving me a platform, I wasn't really very comfortable speaking on the microphone before Eve, funnily enough. Even though I'd done bits of hosting before in terms of speaking in character as a wrestler, I wasn't really that comfortable. But I steadily got comfortable at Eve, and then from once I started getting a bit comfortable, I would get a phone for every show. So it was just assumed that I would do a promo before my match. So, and even sometimes I didn't know that. I'd get to the ring, do my entrance, then turn my back to the crowd and say to Emily, am I doing a promo? She'd say, I think so. So I grab the mic and then just think on the spot of something to say. So, it was a proper learning school in that respect. And again, in terms of, Dan was often very specific with what he wanted from matches. So that was a good chance initially of me figuring out how to fulfill a brief. And even if there was something that I didn't necessarily see that as how the match was going, trying to figure out how to make it how to make it work, and really trying to deliver his vision in a way that work as well. So yeah, so much crazy. Like the platform that we get as women there is incredible, because whilst things are improving in the industry for women, it's still very difficult. You have to spread yourself across a lot more promotions as a woman to be regularly booked. If you're engaged with a promoter, you can be booked on every show. And for women, unless you're a champion, and not always, it's very hard to get booked that regularly on shows. So you really have to spread yourself around a bit more. So it's great having a place where we can work regularly, but also because we're working regularly, really tell those long stories and develop as characters. So I mean, Charlie Morgan was my first big storyline there, and that was something that we actually stretched out and came back to over many years there. So yeah, getting that opportunity and having a creative space to do that and tell those stories, get the fans invested. I really can't credit Eve enough, and that's why I still love performing there to this day. Any Eve show that I can make, I will make. Even this weekend just gone, I wasn't clear to wrestle, but I wasn't going to miss it. I was going to make my presence felt, have my moment, and yeah, I'm just so happy that we get that platform there with Eve.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about your journey towards the Eve Championship then, Nina, because I think we're looking at 2018 now, and in the May, you won the wild card ladder match at Wrestle Queendom against 6 other women, and you cashed in the November, didn't you, to eventually become the Eve champion. But tell us about that journey, because I mean you'd been with Eve maybe a year or two before then, so you'd obviously had a fair few matches and a bit of a journey and a story towards that championship, obviously winning the ladder match as well. What are your recollections of your journey towards the title?
I think my plan of when to cash in I had very, very early on. And I told Dan that, and I communicated with him. I said, this is when I want to do it. I want to do it on the She Won weekend. And so initially there was a briefcase, but I think literally my first show back after Queendom where I had the briefcase, Casey Owens broke it. Wasn't the plan, but just happened in the moment, and the briefcase was broken.
There's the briefcase there.
But it was actually a blessing in disguise, because I remember the reason why Edge's cash in as the first Money in the Bank was such a big deal was because people have basically forgotten that he had it. And it wasn't, that tried and tested thing that it is now, where everyone knows and everyone expects him to become a champion from it. So it was actually quite a blessing. And after the briefcase was snatched away, I was like, I want it to be forgotten about, and I'm not really going to talk about it. And I wanted to not be in She Won for the reason of having that. And I think there was a show before the She Won that I couldn't make because of a taping. So I was like, right, let's have a bit of a downward spiral, have me on a losing streak to the point where I can get pissed off and walk out. So the walk coincided with the taping that I wasn't going to be there for anyway. And also it meant that I was far from anyone's mind on the She Won weekend. And I was even posting fake videos onto my Instagram story of me being in my hometown that weekend. So I just wanted to be as far out of people's view as I possibly could. So on the She Won, it was, in the middle of Charlie Morgan and Kaylee Ray. And I got ready at home, got my gear on, and put a tracksuit over the top of my gear. Drove round the corner. I drove around the corner so that fans wouldn't see me. And then and I only arrived during the interval, I think. And once that second half had started, that's when I drove around near the Resistance Gallery. And I hid in the production truck that they had outside, because that's when they had a truck there, because they were streaming live. And the contract that was sellotaped to the chair, because obviously I didn't have a briefcase, my brother planted for me earlier on that day. So my brother
Brilliant.
went to watch it, and he actually planted the contract for me tucked behind the door on the entranceway. So I wanted it to be this big surprise, big shock moment, and I think it was. So yeah, that was something that I had in my mind for a long time. I had a plan, I knew that's what I wanted, and I think the long way into it that I've done, every all the little tiny thoughts, little details, I think really helped to make for a really memorable moment. I mean, even in lockdown, when a lot of people were talking about their top 10 Eve moments as part of the YouTube streams, I think a lot of the answers that I saw said that, you know, that Cashin was in their top 10 moments. So, I mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about making memorable moments in wrestling. So I'm really proud that I managed to make that moment. I wish the title reign was longer. I don't know if I should say this. It was meant to be longer, but certain circumstances happened to the point where it ended when it did, which was not the initial plan. But I'm still, you know, super proud of what I did in that time. There I am.
And the championship
I'm
belt
lying if I said I
good.
was completely satisfied with that reign and that I was happy to leave it there. I would definitely like to have another reign with the Pro Wrestling Championship. So that is my goal at Eve now. I'm currently undefeated for 2023 at Eve, just saying. And I intend on carrying on that, climbing up the rankings. Oh, here you go. As Lee said, yes, I am currently undefeated.
He is currently undefeated.
My
and
plan
really hope you become the Eve champion once again.
As possible.
There we go. And Nina Samuels versus Miyu Yamashita, that would be an epic match. Certainly somebody you have your eye on, I'm sure, especially with your undefeated streak this year.
Exactly, yeah. Undefeated so far. I want to continue that. I'm going to be back in the ring wrestling very, very soon. Next match will be at the Yard, 25th of May. That'll be my next match at Eve. So, again, coming back with a bang. I'm going to keep the undefeated streak going. I'm going to climb the rankings, and I'm going to get that title match with me and Yamashita. Put that out there. Going to make it happen.
Absolutely. Let's go to some questions that came through before we went live. And we've got to Anne Bruton. Now, I need to get my glasses on here. There's a whole number of questions here. So quick fire answers to Anne's questions here. One thing I'm always intrigued by and can be asked to most wrestlers, how did they choose their wrestling name? And is there a story behind that? So how did you choose your wrestling name? That's an interesting question there from Anne.
So Nina is actually my middle name. So I've always had in my head that I wanted to be Nina. I had in my first 10 matches, I think I had 9 different wrestling names. So it took a bit of getting there. I think the first name I had was Nina Stardust because I was tagging with a girl called Astronomica and I had lots of sparkly stuff. I'm not even kidding. Literally the next day is when Cody Rhodes debuted his new character.
Wow. Okay.
So that was in the bin. He was watching our little show in the Resistance Gallery, but so yeah, I was like, right, let's change that. So then I think next one I did a couple of festivals of Lucha Britannia where I was the festival girl. So my name was based off whatever festival we were at that day. Then I went as Nina Star, but then got told immediately after the show, we didn't know you were having that name. You can't have that name because Addie Star wrestles on our show. I think I did something as just Nina. I did something as Nina Sparkles, and eventually settled on Nina Samuels because Sam is my first name, Nina is my middle name. So I thought if it's good enough for Michael Shawn Hickenbottom, who became Shawn Michaels, it's good enough for me. So I became Nina Samuels. Then someone pointed out to me about Shah Samuels, who I didn't know at the time, and said, you know, he's a pretty big deal. Are you sure you want to have the name Samuels? I was like, I can't change again. And then, my fellow Samuels ended up joining me in NXT UK, and we really thought that one of us was going to have to change their name, and I felt really bad that it might be Shah because he had the name first, but I was on the show first. But luckily, they let us both keep our names and just mysteriously have the same surname on the same show. Brilliant.
And another quick fire answer, your biggest influence. So who would you say is your biggest influence in day-to-day life or in your wrestling career or maybe to your character?
I'll go with my biggest influence for my character because
sure.
when I started in NXT UK, I'd say I was a pretty generic villain. And me and Ginny started drawing a lot of comparisons, and Ginny had a much more established character for longer. So I was like, right, I need to separate myself a bit more. And I thought one of my favorite characters in wrestling, one of my favorite wrestlers is The Miz. So I love the way, I love the character that he was. I love the way that he sold stories. I think that was not long after he'd had a great feud with Dolph Ziggler for the Intercontinental title. And I just remember how much of a big deal it felt, and how anything that he was a part of seemed like a big deal, and like there was such a good story. So I was thinking, how can I be a sort of channel The Miz into a female character? And obviously he had the Hollywood star thing, and I had a theatrical background. So the startings of the character was thinking of trying to be a female Miz, but with theatre instead of Hollywood. And that was how the bones of it started. And from then I started working on a backstory, pitching various ideas for entrances, presentation, things like that. And yeah, that's how it started. So I would say The Miz. And I still think The Miz is incredible. Like, you know, as I say, such a well-rounder in terms of being an amazing character, amazing on the microphone. You're always invested in what he's doing. He makes all these memorable moments. So yeah, The Miz is my guy.
There we go. And we've got Inkster Lee, who responded to our Instagram post from the other day. Do you have any female wrestlers from the US that you would want to compete against the most? So I'm sure you've probably got a desire to wrestle over in the States sometime in the future, but are there any female talent over in the US that you'd like to perform against or with in the future?
Gosh, so many. Mickie James has always been a huge idol of mine, so I'd love a chance to step in the ring with Mickie. I wrestled Jordan Grace years and years ago in Progress, but again, I think we're both, you know, much better wrestlers now than we were then, so I'd love a chance to step in with Jordan Grace again. I think it was Lee who asked that question. I know Kylan King is another favorite wrestler of his, so I know that's a dream match of his. I would love to step in with Kylan King. I think she's very, very talented. I'm sure I'm going to think of so many more after this. I'm going to be gutted at ones I've missed out. But yeah, there's
a good start there, a good list.
There's a few there. Yeah, a lot of great talent out there that I would love to step in the ring with.
Absolutely. And we got Megan, who sent us two very similar questions. Who would you like to go against, past or future? And who would be your dream match to be against? So do you have any kind of dream matches, whether it be past, present or future, you know, that you've often thought about?
So yeah, I've just said a couple there. Past, I guess, I always loved Victoria. I thought she was great. Like Victoria, now Lisa Marie. She's incredible. That was a match that we were close to having it at one point. I got asked to do the match and at a promotion in the UK, but I already had something else on that day. So, but I'd heard that it was a possibility in a different promotion. So that's why I said no, because I said, sorry, I'm already booked elsewhere, and I had a feeling that it was happening somewhere else. It didn't happen in the end, so I'm gutted about that. A future match, I would love to wrestle Meiko Satomura.
Wow.
You know, it's a dream match I've stated before. You know, she's a great friend, and also just like the absolute best. She is a lovely woman, but the second that bell rings, she is a monster. Like, she is a killer when it comes to the ring. Like, just such a great level of intensity. I would love to wrestle her. She's one of the absolute best. It was a match that I was so gutted didn't happen at NXT UK. I got to have most of the matches that I wanted in NXT UK, but she was definitely a big one that I would have loved to wrestle that I didn't get a chance to. So that's a big dream match of mine for sure.
Absolutely. And Adam Wright's been in touch again. Nina versus Ali Catch or Nina versus Billy Starks. That would be insane for sure. And Lee, who's watching this live via YouTube.
At Eve recently.
She was indeed, yes.
And she's, as I understand, Billy Starks is coming to Eve on the 2nd of July.
Wow.
So maybe we have a word with Mr. Dan Reed and see if we can make that happen.
That would be pretty cool. And Lee watching this live via YouTube. Hi, Lee. Yes, Nina versus Kylan King. That would be one of his dream matches. Really hope to get to see that match one day. And let's just have a quick quiz. You've had a ton of questions come through during this broadcast.
Thank you everyone for sending in the questions.
Richie, you said earlier, yes, do you have a goal of becoming the Progress Women's Champion one day? I think we answered that earlier on. You've been tied up with Alexxis, of course, but after that, Lana Austin, watch yourself for sure. Do you have any favorite wrestlers that you look up to? Asks Richie. So have you got anybody in the business that you look up to as a mentor or as a particular influence?
My favorite wrestler when I was growing up was Bret Hart. Loved Bret Hart. Then my next favorite was Alita, because I was a tomboy when I was younger, if you can believe that. And I had two older brothers, so I definitely related to Alita a lot there. I've said already someone I look up to a lot because, you know, he's been in the company for so long. Like the amount of work that he puts into every story that he's in is a big inspiration as well. Mako again, like Mako is such a true pro. I could only dream of becoming a 10th of the level of badass that she is, because she's just that. She's just that incredible. But there's a lot of great women on the scene right now, actually. So, you know, Lizzie Evo is someone who I'm consistently impressed by. Like every time I watch her perform, she kills it, and she's, you know, someone that I watch and who really makes me want to step up my game watching her. Miyu's another one. I mean, Miyu and Lizzie had a great match at Eve recently, where that was one that I watched and felt so inspired by. Millie and Miyu at Eve recently just lost yesterday at Pro Wrestling Nova. It was their debut show. Millie and Sapphire Reed had an incredible match. Sapphire Reed is so young and sickeningly good for how young that she is. So even, you know, I was inspired watching that yesterday. Like I'm inspired by not just great women, like great wrestlers in general, but especially when I get to see great matches with women that I'm on the scene with right now. That's what really inspires me, because I know that I'm going to have opportunities to mix it up with those women, and it inspires me because I want to be better, so that I can put on that level of matches with those women. And, you know, especially Sapphire, someone that I just mentioned, she's someone who I started a story with at Pro Wrestling Eve, which I don't know when it's going to be, but I know that I'm going to meet her inside an Eve ring, and I feel like Eve is often where I have some of my best matches. So I'm definitely hoping to add a match with Sapphire Reed to the list there. So the inspiration is not just people I see on TV, it's the people that I see on shows that I'm on, because I want to have killer matches with those women.
And I suppose when you see individuals like Sapphire Reed and other young talent and the established talent on the scene as well, that must motivate you to want to be better and to constantly push yourself, I'm guessing.
Yeah, for sure. Like the talent right now is insane. And even like the fact that I've missed out on 6.5 weeks worth of wrestling and training, I'm already like, I need to put the work in. I need to get back and be on the level that all of these other girls are on, because people are going out there wanting to steal the show every time. And if you don't go out with that mentality, you're gonna, you know, you're gonna fall behind. It's so competitive now. Like there's so much talent there. You have to stand out, and you have to put the work in to stand out, and seeing what all these, and that's what's been nice actually. Being the one nice thing about being injured is I've actually just got to sit back, watch shows, and really appreciate how many amazing women there are at the moment on the scene that I'm soon going to be mixing up with again. So, you know, it's, I don't want to say an eye-opener because I knew they were good before, but it's definitely an inspiration to really come back swinging.
And I think we'll leave the final question for Millie C. And I'll say I love how full circle you and Charlie Morgan have come. So add a bit of light there. What's Millie referring to regarding yourself and Charlie Morgan? You said you've had this kind of ongoing rivalry in Pro Wrestling Eve. What's the full circle?
I don't know if the full circle is the fact that some photos have come out of me on her hendo at the weekend.
Oh, okay. And you said you're going to be making her wedding cake as well. So
yeah, and it's funny that given that she was like one of the main rivals that I've had in my career in Eve, and it was a fancy dress for the night out to dress up as wrestlers. She dressed up as Shawn Michaels. I dressed up as Bret Hart. So I guess that's a kind of full circle moment. Like, we were two of each other's best rivals, and we dressed up as two people who were their respective rivals. But so she was when we were first allowed back onto the indies after COVID, while in NXT. She was my first match back. So I was the opener of an Eve show, surprise, doing an open challenge, and she answered that challenge. So that was cool, having my first indie match in, when was that, December 2021. So I hadn't done an indie match then for nearly 2 years. So having my first match back, that to me, even though we'd had some NXT UK shows in front of fans then, that to me felt like my true return to wrestling in front of a live crowd. I was on cloud nine after that. Like, I was so buzzing. It was my first match in a long time where I'd wrestled for longer than 5 minutes. So even just, doing a longer match again, and knowing that I still had that in me against her was very, very cool. Her return match at Wrestle Queendom after, when she was a bigger surprise. Spoiler alert, literally that was, we were hoping that would be against me, because we thought, again, for her as well, there's a lot of trust between us from all the time we've worked together, and I was helping her train for her return in secret. So we were hoping that'd be a nice full circle moment there. Didn't work out, unfortunately, but it was nice that we sort of got to have that moment eventually. Oh, I've just seen she was part of the Reese for Charlie's coming out, and now she's part of the wedding. Yes. Yeah. It was great being part of a very special moment for her with that. It was hard initially trying to work out the best way to facilitate her coming out in the most respectful way possible. It was tricky working out that balance. I think we got the balance there okay, but being part of her wedding, and believe it or not, I was one of the first people in wrestling to find out about her and Jetta. It was kept very secret for a good few months, so it was a secret that I had for a while. So even being one of the first people that she told meant a lot to me, because we were great friends then. We still are great friends now as well. But yeah, I cannot wait to see the two of them get married. They are a wonderful couple in the ring and out of the ring.
Absolutely. But as we start to wind down this 300th episode of Wrestling with Johners with Nina Samuels, it's an opportunity, Nina, for you to throw out to my viewers and listeners out there where they can reach out to you on social media to learn more about Nina Samuels, the host of the Nina Samuels Show, and to tell us why we need more Nina. But where can we reach out to you on your social media platforms, Nina? And if it's any help, it is scrolling along.
It is on the bottom, yeah.
There
so at Nina Samuels 123, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. My merchandise store, as it's on the screen right now, ninasamuels.bigcartel.com, where you can buy t-shirts and signed photos. Of course the world needs more Nina. Have you not been listening to me for the last hour and a half talk about how fantastic I am?
Absolutely.
So yeah, every show needs more Nina. Looking forward to my return to the ring this Saturday at PW. Other shows coming up. Got Pro Wrestling Eve on the 25th of May. And of course, the big one, Progress against Alexxis Falcon. Clock strikes midnight. You do not want to miss that match. It's going to be something really special, and I cannot wait.
There we go. But Nina Samuels, it's been a pleasure having you on as a guest in this milestone episode of Wrestling with Johners. And as I said at the top of the show, I couldn't think of anybody better to have as my special guest for this very special episode. And I just want to thank you so much for your time. We'll see you at Super Strong Style in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you for having me, and happy episode 300.
There we go. Thank you, Nina Samuels. You've been a wonderful guest, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.